Oh, I love seeing all these numbers. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's Eye on ESI. I've got an extremely special, special guest because we don't have Jared Casalia with us today, but we do have Sarah Roberts and Annette Habib, both of True Staffing Partners, and of course, my counterpart always, Mike Quartararo, president of ACEDS. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Thanks for
having us.
How are we all doing?
Doing
More
well.
I would say cool. It hasn't been below 90 down here in like 2 weeks. So
it's the hard part. Yeah, in New York, I think Mike and New Jersey, Annette, we're all feeling the same thing. So probably not as bad as you are down there. All right, so today, just a quick one for anyone who has joined us before, welcome back. For anyone who is joining us for the first time, this is an extremely interactive. It's not just about Sarah, Annette, and Mike and I just having a conversation. We want your questions. We want to hear from you. We want your feedback, your comments, your thoughts on everything that we're sharing today. But we're going to turn it over because we've got some trends that Sarah and Annette are going to walk us through. So Sarah and Annette.
yeah. So if you tuned in last month, a lot of the trends have actually been pretty consistent, but have a couple of things that we'll go over. So 92% of job seekers right now are accepting the first offer that they're extended, and compared to this time last year is just like wildly higher. 0% of seekers who received a job offer also then received a counter offer in Q2, and that stayed consistent. We haven't seen any counter offers so far in the beginning of this quarter. 0% of true contractors have been converted to full-time employees over the last 90 days. That also stays true. It used to be around 3 out of our 5 contractors every month were converting to permanent full-time roles within those organizations. It's just not happening quite as quickly. We'll go into some of the reasons around that later if people have questions. I think one of the big trends that we're continuing to see is that fully remote job seekers expect at least to have a conversation, a 25% increase in base salary to even consider going into an office or any sort of hybrid. And that's 2 or more days. So if somebody's making $100,000 base salary, they're going to need to know that this role will pay at least $125,000 in order to even have a conversation. And maybe even then, it may not be enough, but barrier to entry as far as the conversation goes.
Do you see that because, or do either any of you see that because I know a lot of law firms kept saying they were going to push more and more for 3 to 4 days in the office or fully back to the office, that they're starting to push that out a little bit further, that mandate?
Well, there's the difference between what the policy is and how the policy is enforced. So we always recommend people ask that question on an interview. The first being, what is the policy? And then secondly, how is it enforced? I think we've seen it more and more. I've had a couple of conversations where it's like, okay, starting Q4, people are going to go back more just in the last couple of weeks. But barrier to entry for somebody 5 days a week is going to be a lot higher than even that 25%. So, people are willing to take less to have the quality of life and being able to stay remote and things like that. So, but these are where the opportunities are, right? So if you have an interest in, pivoting to a new role, and compensation is your main motivator, going into an office should be something that you'd expect.
So
at least
you're saying even though the law firm may have a policy, let's say of 3 days a week in the office, that ediscovery, actual lead, hiring manager or leader, maybe in the first few months you would have to be in the office 3 times a week. But I think in time, it could be not the 3 days is not enforced. They could make it more 1 or 2 days or as needed in the office, but they have to make the law firm policy kind of the same throughout the firm, regardless of the department that you're in.
And we've seen companies will be like, hey, every Tuesday is our team day. You have to be there no matter what. And maybe there's flexibility around the other days, or the policy is more lax, or the way they enforce it, around the other days.
Excellent. Awesome. What's next?
So the speed of hire, this hasn't changed. It's pretty consistent since last month. At this point, I think we can most likely expect this to be the new norm. The hiring timeline is still faster than it was pre-pandemic. Most interviews are still being done virtually, even for hybrid positions, which has contributed to the interview process getting done faster. Executive searches are still 90 days from when a resume has been submitted to when an offer is made. 45 days for mid-market non-contracts roles, and then 10 days for contracts positions. As Sarah said before, 90% of people are taking the first offer they get, so it is still, the speed of hire is still important. For hiring managers, if there is a candidate who they're really interested in bringing on board, using speed to your competitive advantage and getting that offer to them first will absolutely help.
Yeah, that makes sense. This stuff hasn't really changed. I mean, I know Jared has talked about this, and we've talked about these numbers, so if people have specific questions, but both the law firm and the vendor average salaries, really haven't changed much. And I think some of this plays a part in, potentially the 0% counter offers, right? There's like the expectation of ranges and things like that. There's hybrid policies are discussed and things. So people have a better idea of what that looks like going in, and there's, less back and forth.
Excellent.
Yeah, MT, you can go to the next slide.
Workforce evolution. This hasn't changed much since last week as well. Contracting now is more than half the market. There's still going to be like 50% contracts, 50%, full-time hires. What we will expect is maybe a change in more people willing to take contracts in order to get into organizations where they can't get in any other way. So many companies, in particular corporations, are leveraging contractors more than ever before. And so, there are a lot of candidates that are willing to kind of take that contract to see if they can get into that ediscovery corporate position that, might be harder to get into otherwise. And then as you can see from this chart, there's still very little 5 days a week positions available, and 96% are still hybrid or fully remote.
So you said, I'm sorry, Mike.
No, I got just a quick question. Is there, because this is annually, I'm wondering if have you guys observed a sort of seasonal component to contract work? Does it happen at a particular time of the year, or let's maybe break it down in quarters?
That's a good question. I think we can definitely pull that data from a quarterly perspective. Ever since like COVID and kind of these pendulum swings, that stayed pretty consistent. I mean, I think we had predicted that contract numbers by now would be like closer to 70%. So that's been a little bit lower than we had anticipated in previous times. I think that, like, generally speaking, towards the beginning of the year or end of the year, it may swing up because people have budget left over or things like that, or, it kind of depends on how these corporations are, delivering budgets and things like that as well. So I don't want to guess on like seasonal. I think we've just stayed pretty consistent, post-pandemic on these, and you can kind of see like where the pendulum swings over the course of the last couple of years.
I do think there is like somewhat of an uptick during the summer months as well as like the holidays, and I think that has a lot to do with employees being out on vacation during that time, and so they do bring in contractors during that time to kind of help with the workload, since there are lots of folks out on vacation.
And then what ends up happening is they have all this work, and now they have resources to help support them. And
no, and my sort of follow-up question to that is, do you guys have a sense? Is it just, I mean, summer is typically slower in legal, right? But is it economic headwinds? Is the work just not there, or are people just looking for more secure, permanent employment? Do you have a sense of what's going on there?
I mean, I think we're still kind of uncertain about, like, I mean, the macroeconomics of everything is still kind of uncertain still. So I feel like, that piece is contributing to contractors. I think from a longevity standpoint, people are taking the contract route because it's both on the corporate side a little bit less, barrier to entry. They can move faster, they can hire people. It's once somebody is in there, it's easier to convert them once they're an employee and they can show the value of this person in this position. So there are lots of different reasons why that kind of ticks up and down, but yeah, I mean, we're still like uncertain. We have been since, end of Q3, early Q4 of last year. So I definitely think that plays a role in those pieces. And just, when Meta laid off 10,000 people, everyone's still kind of like waiting to figure out how that's going. And, their stock has come back up a lot. So, I think people are still kind of just generally uncertain.
So I have a quick question with regards to that contract piece again, because you mentioned corporate. So what kind of roles are you seeing as contract roles in the corporate space?
So a lot of the ones we're seeing right now on the corporate side are more privacy related as well, or they're secondment roles within an e-discovery division of a large corporation. So you're an attorney working at a big tech company. There's lots of, opportunity there. You're a privacy program manager, or you're building out a global privacy division, and maybe your headcount is going to open up in January, but you have the work now and you need the work now, so you can deliver budgets and like use that budget differently, hiring contractors than you can full-time employees. So people are leveraging it for those reasons. But yeah, we're seeing a lot of like corporate, what I would call like the mid-level, program managers, project managers, PMO teams, and then, very similarly across e-discovery too.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. All right. And I'm glad you touched on privacy, which we've been trying to touch on for a few months now. So perfect. Lead in. Yeah. Awesome.
So a lot of times people ask us about, you guys got into privacy, you guys pivoted years ago, how do I reinvent myself or diversify experiences and things like that? Certifications is really the first thing you can go to. We have a lot of information on our website. The IPP is like the gold standard and a partner of ours. So, as an e-discovery professional, already having project management skills, already having technical skills as an analyst, things like that, there are certifications like the CIPT or the CIPM, or those types of certifications that you can understand and learn more about how a program is built, what is used in order to build a privacy program. And maybe you have to take a step back, or these are a lot of the people that are taking the privacy contract roles in corporations, right? They may not have been qualified for a full-time role within a corporation, but maybe some of the parameters around a contract privacy role are a little bit different. And so they're able to break into an organization because of the other skills they have from e-discovery. And by them taking a certification, taking classes, and then being immersed within that team will allow you to take, 5 steps forward down the road. And you may have to take a step back compensation-wise. You're new to a new industry, right? But less of a barrier to entry and less of a step back than, competing against people that went to school and got a degree in cybersecurity, and that's like what they do and what they know. And, now you're competing with somebody with a degree rather than just like, 3 or 4 years more of experience than you do in privacy.
Excellent. Mike, any thoughts, questions?
No.
Awesome. All right. Well, that was an easy conversation on data privacy. So what I do want to talk about now is something that we talked about during our prep. And actually, I came across a post yesterday on LinkedIn where someone had asked about this too. So on our prep call, we talked a little bit about job tools, online job tools like LinkedIn Jobs. So can we touch a little bit on that and how it's used, how your team might use it, how best to use it? I know Mike had some questions, so can we touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are places when you're going online and on LinkedIn that you can see how many people have applied, how long the role has been open, things like that. So you always want to check those things first. I mean, it's always better to reach out to your agent first and ask them if you see a role posted somewhere on LinkedIn, maybe the compensation isn't there. Maybe they didn't reach out to you about that role because it's, not where your expectations lie or things like that. Or, the role says it has to be somewhere, but maybe they're allowing people to be remote, or maybe it is in office and you're only interested in remote. So there's a lot of, different things that you have to consider as you're looking over those. You know, when you're just hitting quick apply, like your resume may be going into a dark hole. So you're sitting there crossing your fingers and hoping that keywords, you know, are going to get your resume to the right person. So it's always better to say, hey, you know, agent, are you working on this role or with this company or whatever the case may be? I also think if you're an e-discovery project manager and you're using relativity every day, e-discovery and relativity and all of those things, like talk about your skills, because if those skills and those keywords aren't on there, sometimes when you're hitting quick apply or, you know, applying to these, you know, you're being disqualified because of like very obvious skills that you have that people know you have, but aren't being picked up because you're not displaying your experience well on a resume. You don't want to just talk about that, right? You want to like see when you've used it and how you've used it.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that you should, and you know, you should go through your LinkedIn profile and actually look at it and update it, because I know even people who may not be using LinkedIn, like a hiring manager may not be using LinkedIn for all their applications, but then going to LinkedIn to look at your profile and understand what's in there. So for me, I think that's an extremely important thing to go in and kind of put all that information. I don't know how you and Annette may feel about it.
Your resume should always mirror your LinkedIn. There shouldn't be huge discrepancies between those, because when you're applying to jobs or you're looking for a new job, anytime you introduce mystery into the situation, it increases, you know, a hiring manager's doubt on something or things like that. So you always want to make sure like dates are aligned, you know, companies are aligned. If you've been at a new company for a year, that should be on your LinkedIn, right? And, you know, updating those.
Hey, quick question, because I don't know that everybody would be aware of this. When you, and it's been a while since I actually clicked on the button, so I'm not sure myself, that's why I'm asking, but when you click that easy apply, I think it's easy apply or quick apply, does it just transmit your profile, or is there a point at which you can actually upload a resume?
I think if you have a resume uploaded, it could be either or.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then also for like the LinkedIn, like job descriptions, I mean, we always say that the job descriptions are the, like this wish list of what the dream candidate would look like. But, you know, there's many times where employers are, you know, listing those things because there are things that you'll be learning or doing in the position, but you don't necessarily have to have every bullet point on that job description to be qualified for that role. And I know that a lot of times, you know, people will see a couple of bullet points that they don't have experience in on a job description, and so they won't apply. But we encourage people to still apply, because it just because you're missing one or two things doesn't mean that you're not qualified for the position. It might be a role where you'll gain more of that experience and grow in your next role. So,
and I would share too that, you know, as a former hiring manager, not so much anymore, but you know, in my law firm days, I always liked when I saw a resume that was kind of tailored, right? So I encourage everybody to kind of tailor their resume to the job. You know, you might have like your core resume, but you know, when you apply to a job, give it a little thought, spend a little time sort of sprucing it up so that your resume actually meets the job requirements, at least the listed job requirements. A lot of people don't know that a lot of organizations use software to sort of screen. And if it's not, if your resume is not hitting on some of the keywords that they're looking for, you may get excluded in that way. So it's really important to tailor the resume to the job.
And also be careful of like who and where you're getting the advice from on tailoring resumes and things like that. Because if you're just taking advice from somebody like a generalist on resumes, it might be very different than, you know, the director of Lit Support at a law firm and how they're reading your resume, right? So I agree with Mike, you know, from a tailoring perspective, but I also don't think you want to go to the extent where you have a different resume for every single job that you're applying for, and then, you know, you're confusing that and you know, it just
Sending somebody the wrong resume.
That's crazy. Yeah.
What other tips and tricks should people look for, like working with an agent versus looking for a role themselves, other tools? What are thoughts that you both have around that?
I mean, definitely, you know, I think Sarah, what do you think? I don't know, other than like resumes.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I
I think the most important thing at the end of the day is like, don't panic and freak out and send your resume to a million different places. Like that's not, like, don't panic apply. You want to be thoughtful. You want to like be able to tailor your resume. You want to gather your thoughts and your skills and experiences. I think on top of like having some tailored resumes, like actually showing where you worked, experiences. I think one of the biggest things that I end up giving the advice on to people is that they've been at one company for 10 years and their most recent title is listed, but then it doesn't list all the times that they've been promoted. Like, tell us what you did in each role, like show us the progression and the transitions that you've had in between. I think that, you know, that's really important. I also think that, you know, there's going to be some opportunity and maybe types of positions that you never thought about before. A lot of people are like, I would never work at a law firm. And another person be like, I would never work at a vendor or never work in corporate. Like, you know, don't knock it till you try it. You know, most of the law firm people are saying they never work at a vendor and vice versa, but like, you know, that's because they haven't experienced those. I think, you know, there's the right opportunity and position for different people. But if you're, you know, actively looking, if you're out of work or things like that, I always recommend, and you'll hear any recruiter on our teams, no matter who, say, we'll always recommend and encourage conversations so that you can talk to different people, talk to different companies. You may surprise yourself. But you should never take go with your gut. You should never take a job, you know, just to take the job if you don't feel like it's going to be the right fit for you.
Yeah.
And maybe
I remember now.
Never say never.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I remember what I was going to say now. Also, if you're working with an agent, we're kind of like your cover letter for you. Like, we're an advocate for you. We've taken the time to speak with you, get to know what you're looking for, and we can, you know, speak to our clients about you and your skill set and why you might be a good fit for a position. But if you are applying to something, you know, directly online or through LinkedIn slots, I mean, a cover letter probably would be helpful. If you don't have that person, that, you know, that agent that's going to advocate for you, then, you know, having a cover letter kind of explaining why you might be a good fit for that particular position would probably be helpful.
Just reminded me of a question that I asked in our prep, and I don't remember the answer, but Annette, you alluded to it more than once. And my question simply is the cover letter dead?
Oh yeah, you did ask that.
We, like, of the clients and people that we work with, and Annette, correct me if I'm like way off base here, unless it's a law firm, like lawyer position, privacy, ediscovery or otherwise, like, I don't mean law firm roles, I mean a legal required attorney role. It's infrequent that we're getting asked for one to include, maybe a writing sample if it's like a specific type of like copyright role, or you're working in marketing, or you're coming up with content. We're not getting asked that, but you're coming through an agent when you're working through us too, right? So I think if you don't have an agent or somebody like that, it's going to put you at a disadvantage in certain instances. So like Annette's advice is great in that instance, because you're advocating for yourself and being able to touch on some of those, but we don't see a lot of our clients requiring or asking for those outside of like lawyer positions.
Interesting. That's sort of a shift, I would say, from sort of traditional hiring, you know,
100%.
years ago.
So I have a question. I don't know if it's a valid question or not, but I'm thinking of it. If you're a hiring manager or a candidate, how do you find the right agents to work with to either source the employees that you need or to find you the roles that you want? Should you just go with the first agent you find, or how do you know that's the right person, the right group, the right company?
Yeah, I mean, I think industry expertise is huge, right? If you are an e-discovery or privacy service provider, you shouldn't pick an agency that does general recruiting, right? Like, agency specialization is highly important. I think it's also like any specific role, you know, you'll know when it's the right fit.
Perfect. Awesome. Mike, any other questions? I know we've got a hard stop today. Mike's got to jump off for another call shortly, but any questions from our attendees? Anything else that Annette and Sarah or Mike, do you want to share?
I'm curious if our audience has any questions. Guys, please use the chat.
They've been extremely quiet today.
Usually we have a lot more activity.
Yeah, But if not, we can give them a few minutes back. We have actually, so there goes the information to connect with True. You can also find Sarah and Annette on LinkedIn. And Sarah and Annette, where will you be next?
Probably the Relativity Fest conference. Yeah, that's where I'll probably be attending.
No ILTA for you?
No ILTA. Sarah, you're on mute. But no ILTA for True. I think Sarah's still stuck on mute.
Okay, well, we do have on other news, I will share that the ACEDS summer sale is currently happening right now. So please feel free. I think we're going to drop the code in our chat. So if you want to get involved in our chapters, which are global, and we've got more chapters that are rolling out this year. If you want to go in for training, we've got micro courses, we've got ediscovery foundational training. So please feel free. You'll also, if you've been dying to get your certification, now is a great time to go and sign up for it. So you get 25% off all of our courses. We do have 3 minutes left and 2 questions in the chat. So I will ask the first one. I don't know if Annette, if Sarah can't answer, this is all on you. What is your forecast for ediscovery jobs going into 2024?
Oh, geez. I think it might be too early to tell what it'll look like for next year. I'm not sure. I think, yeah, I don't know if we can answer that quite yet right now. Maybe ask us at the end of Q3, maybe early Q4. We'll have a better idea of what it'll look like going into 2024.
All right, we'll come back to that question in October. We'll come back to it in October for our next one. And then as a contract attorney who has done this work for a while, it's very disheartening to see how salaries have gone down over time. Can you please address this in detail in a future program? So I think we're all happy to do that in the future to address why those salaries have gone down. So we'll make note of that and work with the True staffing team to look at those numbers and come up with some answers for you. I think that's everything we have for today. Thank you so much. We'll be back next month. Mike and I will also be at ILTACon. We both have speaking sessions, and ACEDS and ILTA will be partnering for a cocktail event. We hope to see you there. So, and if you want to reach out and have any meetings or just catch up with us, we also have a booth. I don't know our booth number yet, but we'll share it next month before we head over to ILTA. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good to see you.
Thank you.